Well, welcome to United-We-Strike Radio with the Sovereign Independent. I just wanted to basically say for many of the listeners out there who aren't aware of the origins of the Sovereign Independent, maybe I should spend a couple of minutes just explaining it before we hopefully bring our next guest on. Basically, we've come a long way, haven't we, with this radio now, because, we've got an excellent website, we've got an excellent physical newspaper. In fact, our website now is eclipsing all of the major political parties in Ireland. In fact, we're actually having more visitor hits even than Sinn Féin, and that's just awesome. So this is testimony to the people that are actually waking up and looking for answers elsewhere because they're losing faith in their political parties. And the newspaper is an absolute phenomenon. It's so popular here in Ireland and in the UK, and people across the world are requesting the newspaper. And really, before we ask the next guest on, I just wanted to say it was about 2 years ago when I was actually at a conference in England, an alternative view conference, and this was during the run-up to the second Lisbon referendum. For those of you not aware of Lisbon, it's basically a treaty to turn the European Union into a totalitarian dictatorship, which is what it is now. But we were actually at a meeting before this referendum was taking place, and I was speaking to a person called Brian Gerrish, and we were discussing things that we could do to actually wake people up as to what the Lisbon Treaty actually was. And Brian basically made some suggestions to me, and he suggested, why don't you start a newspaper up? Because Brian Gerrish basically had a newspaper himself, which was the UK Column, which you can actually go to on ukcolumn.org. So he told me, he said, well, why don't I start a newspaper up similar to the UK Column? So I thought that was a great idea. So when I went back to Ireland, I got together with a few people. I was given a little bit of a talk, about Lisbon truth, and, just put the idea out there. And there were a few groups out there, oneworldscam.com, they were there, and a few other activists, and we all got together, and eventually we made it happen, and we brought out a newspaper, and we called it Sovereign Independent. And we managed to print about 370,000 copies on our first run. And this was purely from donations given to us from people around Ireland who were concerned and they wanted to do something. And, we had people wanting to distribute the newspaper and people wanting to actually contribute towards it. Now, Ireland only has 4.2 or maybe 4.5 million people. It's a very, very small population. So 370,000 copies of the Sovereign Independent is a massive, absolutely massive percentage of that. And we did wake up a lot of people. Unfortunately, the vote, the referendum was rigged. Most people in Ireland didn't want this treaty, but they pushed it through in the end. But nevertheless, we woke up an awful lot of people. But we're now on our fourth edition now. I'm actually just spending this weekend finishing it, and it's proved hugely popular in Ireland and in the UK. And it really, if it wasn't for the UK column, the Sovereign Independent wouldn't be here. Now, we've obviously moved on to radio now as well, and like every second weekend of the month, we're going to be having our 2 hour slot in the marathon weekend where we're urging people to not comply and to not buy. But we also have our own radio now every Monday evening, and in GMT it's between 7 and 9 o'clock, Sovereign Independent Radio, and you'll be able to find a link for that on IC Radio Networks. But the person that we've asked to come on today basically is the editor of the UK Column, the newspaper which inspired the Sovereign Independent, and for the last while now, a few months or a year or so, the person that's been editing the paper and creating the UK Column has actually been a man called Mr. Mike Robinson. And we've got to know Mike a little bit over the last couple of years, and to an extent we do work together, and in the future we're going to be working together a lot more. It's obviously beneficial to do that for both of us. Mike, are you there?
I am here. Hello.
Hi, Mike. Great to hear from you again, and thanks for coming on, and thanks for creating such a wonderful newspaper, the UK Column. I'm getting it on a regular basis, and certainly it's a great way. With me living in Ireland, it's a great way to keep abreast of what's really going on over there. You know, there's a lot going on, isn't there, at the moment in both Ireland and the UK? Well, the whole world really. We're all being pushed towards a totalitarian regime, and you know, like all our different governments are being used in their various different ways to push us to that agenda. And there's a lot going on in the UK. Which, I think it would be beneficial for the listeners to understand, really. We have a lot of organisations that are actually running the country that are other than the government. We know that yourself and Brian Gerrish and what you do with the UK Column, you're actually rooting out some of this corruption. An organisation called Common Purpose. You have a lot of... You have the social services virtually kidnapping children, which is something that you're very, very involved in. But things are really moving along fast at the moment, aren't they, Mike? And what would you say at the moment would be the biggest issues that you're actually dealing with at the moment as an organisation, as a newspaper?
Well, I mean, just speaking generally, I would say that things are moving along very, very fast at the moment, at increasing speeds. And I think we've got to all take some credit for that because in a certain way, because in a certain respect, because we, both you and us and all the other people that are involved in the sort of broader truth movement have been exposing the corruption and the activities of these people to such an extent that they can no longer operate in the shadows as they have been. So they've been sort of forced out into the open. It has had a great effect on the population in general, because more and more people can see what it is that's going on. So it's a fascinating situation we've got at the moment, and of course, as a result of that, the establishment tends to act a bit harder on when unfortunately we occasionally have to interact with them. They tend to be a bit more aggressive than they have been in the past, and they're clearly getting extremely impatient. We see this as being a very positive step from our point of view, because the more open they are forced to be, the more people see what's going on.
Yeah, we're finding very much the same thing over here, aren't we? People are sort of waking up. It is slow, but the media themselves, I think, are sort of seeing that things are happening as well, and to a certain extent, the media are not being so deceitful as they have been, in that there is certain media out there that are actually, to a certain extent, working in our favour. It's sort of moving to that direction, really, because people are wanting truth. I think Neil has a couple of questions for you as well, Mike. Neil Foster would like to come in.
How are you doing, Mike?
Hi.
Just you were saying there that they're getting more bold, if you like, or careless, whichever way you want to look at it, and coming out with more extreme moves, shall we say, to try and force us into this corner, whereby we're not going to be able to get out of it. And this whole thing over last weekend with Osama bin Laden, I mean, the way that was handled. It's so ridiculous that I think the majority of people are just completely baffled by it and think, well, it's just rubbish. And I think people are starting to actually see through the facade of the mainstream media and the utter ridiculousness of the stories they're coming out with. And
I
think that's absolutely right. And I mean the way that whole business last weekend was handled was it was just laughable, really, wasn't it? This is exactly the kind of thing that we need, and equally the week before that then was the Obama birth certificate business, and people have got to take some credit for forcing. It wasn't really Donald Trump that forced him to publish a birth certificate. It was the 2 years of pressure that had been put on him prior to that. That was just the final straw. So So
they actually produced a very bad fake.
Well, exactly, and again, it was laughable, and so every time that they sort of have to act, every time they have to act quickly and do these things, they're shooting themselves in the foot in the process.
Yeah, we've had this as well. Myself and a couple of colleagues were in the Dáil questioning a Green Party TD, and that's a member of Parliament for UK listeners. And basically, we went in with the tactic that we would keep changing the question and get him off his script, Yeah. And it works. You just have to keep firing the question at them, and then just cut to something completely different. And it's like the program's broken, and they can't seem to come back with a coherent answer to anything.
One of the really fascinating things is if you manage to, anybody that's managed to speak to David Cameron, for example, he's a prime example of this, that does that kind of thing and takes him off script. He can't handle it at all, and he tends to get very, very angry and very aggressive very quickly. And it's quite fascinating to watch. There was a bit of video footage of him losing the plot because somebody had asked him a question which wasn't part of the script. And absolutely amazing to see the reaction of the guy.
Sorry, mute mic. Yeah, and they just, it shows their lack of intelligence, really. When they can't even, come back with a straight answer. They can't seem to formulate a reply that makes any sense to you.
Well, what I think it demonstrates quite clearly is just the fact that they are puppets. They're not thinking about what they're doing in any way, and therefore, whenever they get asked a question that goes outside the script that they're handed, they can't handle it. So it's evidence of just the fact that they are totally controlled. Yeah,
and as you say, the more they're exposed, the bolder or more careless they become, and they make really stupid mistakes in terms of this specific thing and the Osama bin Laden thing. And I mean, in between that, the previous bank holiday, there was a report appeared in the newspapers about Kazakhstan. A guy from Kazakhstan apparently had attempted to hijack an Alitalia airliner and take it to Libya. In one newspaper it said he had a Swiss Army knife, which he threatened the stewardess with. How he got that on board, who knows. And the next report said it was a pair of nail clippers, and just conveniently there happened to be a doctor on board with a hypodermic syringe full of tranquilizers to sedate the fellow. And in one report, he was a Kazakhstan diplomat, and another one, he was just an unknown individual. And this is how ridiculous. And that report actually disappeared from the papers very, very quickly because they all contradicted each other, and none of them could get the story straight.
Yeah.
But they've just told the hijackers how to get on the plane is disguise yourself as a doctor. Yeah, it's just crazy. But as I say, that another bank holiday, suspected hijacking, like the underwear bomber and all the rest of it. So anytime it's a bank holiday, I think we should watch out for a silly story coming up.
Yeah.
So in terms of the UK column, I'm not sure when the last issue came out. Would that be a month ago or so?
Oh, well, sadly not. We've only had. It's actually nearly 3 months ago now.
3 months. Okay.
And the reason we aim to get it out every 2 months, but the reason we got delayed this time was just because Brian was ill. Two reasons. Brian was ill, but actually we suspect he was just avoiding the office move that happened. So we've actually moved offices at the same time, just over that period, and found ourselves in with significantly more space. So we're in the process of setting up a video studio at the moment as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fact,
sorry.
The fact that you've had to move office, is great credit to yourselves for actually needing to move office to have more space to do what you're doing.
Yes, we're getting more people volunteering time, and it's never enough, of course, because there's just more for us to do than we can cope with. But yes, we need more desk space, and we've been dying to set up a video facility for over a year and a half. So we finally got that, and the equipment's on its way, and we're going to have that set up in the next month or two. We're going to start producing daily video news shows on the website, and hopefully those will be carried by one of the Sky channels.
That's all positive stuff. What are the plans for the next issue of the paper? What stories are you covering at the moment?
We are covering the how do I describe this?
Carefully.
Well, in the last issue, we covered the main sort of focus of the newspaper was this behavioural change business that's going on in all the government departments, where they're bringing in applied psychology techniques like neuro-linguistic programming into the civil service in the United Kingdom, in an effort to change the minds, literally change the minds of initially it was the top 200 civil servants in the country. Now they've set up behavioural change units in every major government department in the UK, and the aim is to filter this sort of change of thinking right down through the strata of government, right down to the local level. And we're taking that. One of the things that we'll be covering is taking that information and expanding on it slightly. But some of the other stuff, I don't really want to say too much about it at this point, because we want to maintain the surprise for certain organisations and certain parties.
Fair enough. So, I know Brian's not been very well lately, but and he's not possibly been as active as he usually is. But is he getting back out on the road again to do more talks?
Yeah. He's absolutely fine now. It was serious enough, but it wasn't life threatening at all. He still has a stone in a saliva duct, and it's a 4mm stone he's got in his cheek, and it's blocked the saliva duct, and it caused a really, really serious infection, and his head, the side of his head, sort of blew up quite a significant bit larger than it normally is. So he was on pretty strong antibiotics, and that knocked him out for a couple of weeks. But that infection's gone, and he's back on track, and we've got a pretty packed agenda for the next couple of months.
Okay. I heard you talking on another radio station and mentioning the book Political Ponerology.
Yes.
And I've actually got that book, and I'd read it before, and I started reading it again. And it's all in there in that book. I mean, if people can get hold of that and read it, I think it's highly recommended. And basically dealing with the evil that's basically insidiously entered the world of politics and corporates, high corporate boards and all the rest of it, and explaining why these people do what they do and all that kind of thing. And it's a fascinating read for ordinary people to actually begin to understand where all this legislation, etc., is brought down on us, which is detrimental to us. None of it's there to help us. And these people can do it without batting an eyelid and knowing full well the consequences of what they're doing to society, which is to destroy it.
Well, I don't believe that they think about this at all. I mean, one of the key features of most people in at the upper levels of politics these days is that they are either sociopathic or psychopathic, and that might seem like quite an extreme thing to say, but that's the symptoms that they demonstrate. They have no sense of empathy. They don't care in any way, shape, or form about humanity or about their populations. And this isn't just in the UK, of course. It's in many, if not all, the Western governments and possibly other places too. But the key thing about these people is that they recognise each other, and so they bring other people of the same kind of mind into positions around them, and very quickly you've got, without actually needing to have a conspiracy in the pure sense of the word, that's basically what you end up with, because these people think in the same way, and they tend to act in the same way, and they have the same kind of needs and desires, and none of them really have any requirement to think about the people that are affected by their needing to feed their own needs and desires. So
yeah, the reason I brought it up is because there was an article in I think it was a Telegraph this week by some professor, I think it was in Cambridge, who said that we need to be a bit more kind of sympathetic to psychopaths and let's not call them evil, just call them people who lack empathy, even mass murderers, he said. I mean,
well, there's been quite a it might have been the same guy, but he was saying that empathy is a learned response, and of course among those kind of people, among people that are sociopaths or psychopaths, empathy has to be learned because it's not something
that have it. Yeah.
Naturally. Right, most of humanity has empathy as a natural instinct. For them, it's not there, and so in order to give a veneer of empathy, and in terms of the responses to questions in public. So if they're in a public facing political arena, for example, they whether they have empathy or not, they need to give the impression that they have it. So they have to learn how to behave as if they have it. But it's just not something that these people seem to have as a natural instinct, whereas the rest of us perhaps do.
Yeah, well, I think it's. I mean, empathy is a natural human response. I mean, if you see a dog suffering, you have empathy for the dog. If you see a child crying, you have empathy for the child. It's just a natural human response. And as you say, these guys or women, indeed, I mean, they're very good at faking that kind of empathy. These politicians go around, hugging babies and all that kind of thing, and it's quite sickening to watch, knowing full well that there's no sincerity in them whatsoever, and no inclination towards sincerity either. It's only for their own goals and their own egos and quest for power. They do all these things, and it's all fake.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Another part of this book, I think I've not got all the way through it again yet, but I think in there he suggests that everybody standing for a position in politics should go through a psychological testing to see if they're actually psychologically suitable to have any form of power whatsoever over anybody. But it might be in another book, I'm not sure, but I remember reading that somewhere.
I don't know that that's necessarily a good idea, because just our experience of psychologists in particular is not one that we would give us any respect for them, and I can talk a bit about that if you want. But I think possibly a more sensible approach to this is to simply say that you cannot stand for political office unless you have demonstrated, you need to have demonstrated in your career that you can do the job, and that might mean that people that are standing for Congress or for as an MP in the UK or a TD in Ireland have been working within their communities for an extended period, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, and have have a track record that people can believe in. So there are other ways to discover whether people are genuine or not, and so we might want to consider that as an option. But in terms of, I don't want to lump all psychologists in with this. Of course, the problem is you then are left with the situation of, can you trust the psychologist who's making the assessment?
Of course. And well, I mean, I suppose everybody's corruptible as well. I suppose if you want to get into power, you just have a corrupt psychologist.
Yeah.
In terms of the UK column, when you started out, how many issues were you getting out there? And how is that going now?
That's before my time, unfortunately. So I don't really. I mean, I know that it started off as a single A4 sheet, which was just distributed in the Plymouth area in the southwest of England. It then went through a couple of sort of changes. It was originally the Devonport column, and then it was the Plymouth and Devonport column, and then eventually it became the UK column. And we the number of issues that we publish each time is very much dependent on on the sort of level of donations in the previous couple of months. So it's not quite up to the 300,000 that you managed in your first run, but we aim towards the 100,000 if we can. But really, the population in the UK is a lot bigger at 60 million. So we need to, we would dearly love to have be in a better financial situation so we can publish any more. Ideally, I would like to be distributing about 1 million copies each issue, but that at this point isn't possible.
Yeah, we're in the same position ourselves. It's we just have to rely on donations and stuff like that. The goodness of people. Go on, you go, Dave. On you go.
Sorry, in our case, I mean, like when I say 370,000 copies, that was for the first edition, and we haven't achieved that since because again, the first edition we brought it out for the sole purpose of waking people up as far to what the Lisbon Treaty was all about, and so it followed that there were a lot of people out there that wanted to do something, and therefore people were donating across the country, across the world. Actually, people were donating. That's how we were able to actually print that many for the first issue. I think for the second issue, I think we printed about 40,000, and it's been similar to that since. So. Like we're hoping obviously to sort of like push that up the same as you are, and again we have the same situation, don't we, where we're waiting for donations and that. So that's a big thing really, and on an ongoing basis we're looking at different ways of actually raising funds.
Sorry. I heard you talking on a radio there. I mean, I think we've got about 20 minutes to go. Maybe we should start talking about solutions and ways to get around this. I know you're involved with the BCG, the British Constitution Group, and you do a lot of stuff for that. Do you want to go into possible solutions to all of it, really? So I suppose we start with the money. I know we had Roger on the last month talking about the Lawful Bank, and I know he's done a little bit more work on that, and he's put some more stuff up on the Lawful Bank website. Can you?
Well, I mean, basically, for the last couple of years, we've been using this sort of phrase "lawful rebellion," and what we're trying to encourage people is to rebel against the system. But do it in a way which is peaceful and as lawful as we believe it can be. Now we're taking the attitude that the current legal system, the current judicial system, the current government in the United Kingdom is corrupt. That it's actually acting unlawfully in most cases. In most of the activity that it has, it's behaving unlawfully. So we're saying that if we take the UK Constitution, the British Constitution, as an example of how a nation should be run, and the same could happen in Ireland, the same could happen in the United States, then we'll live by the principles embodied in our case it's many documents, but they are written and it does exist. So this country is based on common law. It's based on the will of the people, and so we're trying to encourage the people to exert their will once again. It's something that people in this country have lost the ability to do for whatever reason. We've been talking about this for 3 years now, and we've been building an infrastructure slowly but surely. And I know people have been getting some people have been getting a bit frustrated with how long it's been taking, but we're more or less there now. And so one of the things that we did a couple of months ago was to basically just to make a point. Was to go into a court. Roger Hayes, as you know, went into a court in Birkenhead in northwest England and asked the judge if he was acting on his oath. And what Roger was really asking was, was the court a common law court, or was it some other form of court, or was it not a court at all? And since the judge wouldn't refuse to answer the question, Roger then made a citizen's arrest on the judge. And what happened then was very interesting because the police rescued the judge. Now, this is an unlawful act that the police have done, because there's a common law crime of rescue that if somebody has been arrested on good grounds and the authorities release them without confirming whether that there's justification for the arrest, then that's a common law crime of rescue, and it's actually a treasonous act in itself. So that sort of drew a bit of attention to the kind of things that we were doing. But as you've said, we're also working to build this alternative banking system. But we're also started swearing in peace officers of our own. We're setting up our own common law courts, and our aim is to build an alternative system of governance in this country. Now, this is kind of analogous to what the original settlers in the United States attempted to do, except they had the benefit of several thousand miles of ocean between them and the problems that they faced at the time. We don't have that luxury, so somehow we have to build this infrastructure in parallel with the current system. And what we're basically saying to people is, look, this is our system, this is the way it works, these are the principles that it works on. You can join our system and experience some form of honesty and justice, if you like. I don't like to use that word, but some form of justice to the system, or you can stay in that corrupt system that those other people run, and it's up to people to decide what they want to do. Yeah. We just build it up from that. We're attempting to lead by example rather than sort of say to people, you must do this or you must do that. We're just saying, look, this is what we're doing. Join us or not, it's up to you. If you think we're doing something which is better than the other way, then come on ahead. And we'll do it that way.
Yeah, I think we've got Dave and we have Karen, who's running the whole UNITED-We-Strike marathon weekend. They want to come in and ask you a couple of questions, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this whole lawful rebellion and refusal and resistance concept really is actually quite viral now globally, and this is what this whole weekend is about. And it's on the second Sunday of every month. The marathon, basically, don't buy, don't comply. I think Karen is doing an absolutely brilliant job helping to set this whole thing up, and it's a pleasure for myself and Neil, the Sovereign Independent, to have a 2-hour slot at the weekend, every other weekend of the month. And Karen, basically, I'd just like to introduce you to Karen. Karen, are you there?
I am, and I just want to thank you so much, Neil and Dave and the Sovereign Independent. This is just terrific radio, and I'm so grateful that you are here. And also, Mike, it's very nice to meet you. Thank you for being part of this, because as far as solutions go, we know that this is not the silver bullet. However, the 15th of every month is an economic boycott and strike, and we can slow them down monthly and grow, and it gives us a chance to step out of the system, to pull our money out of the system, to educate ourselves and take collective action. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, because this kind of thing is exactly the kind of thing we need. More radio, more TV, more video, bring the message out to as broad an audience as possible, and this is the best way to do it, I think.
Well, peaceful resistance, too. We've all been trained to give away our power from the time we're born. We're channeled into systems that are set up to eviscerate us and to take away our ability to think for ourselves. So when we finally start to realize how we outnumber that small criminal minority, we can begin to turn things around and take action locally. And at least this gives us a way to educate ourselves. It's individual empowerment, and then it's united collective action every 15th of the month, and preparedness, because we're so ripe now for a false flag.
I think that's right, so we've got to be prepared on that score. But I think we've got to be prepared in other areas as well. So for example, food prices is something that people should be concerned about at this point, I believe, I mean, I am stockpiling food here just because I believe that the price of food is going to go up quite significantly. The other problem that we're going to have is the price of energy. And the prices are going through the roof, and it's actually fraudulent, speculative activity that's doing it. It's not any kind of shortage, and it's not any kind of problem with oil production or gas production. It's purely the activities of the City of London and Wall Street in an attempt to sort of recapitalise themselves because they're utterly bankrupt, as you know, at the moment. So we've got to look after ourselves, and what part of this whole alternative governance thing is to build the networks of people who can help each other, and it's just amazing how many people are coming out of the woodwork with skills that can help the broader alternative community. So it's going very well. It needs more and more people, and this is the kind of platform that we need to encourage people in.
Well, we're happy that you are part of it, that this is really growing and taking on a life of its own. And right now, though, I'd like to say that we owe a great deal of gratitude to our producer, Rick Margetts in the UK. Without his dedication and his tireless effort, this would not be possible. So he's really the man to thank.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rick's also doing a fantastic job with Albert Burgess on the treason side of things, the whole sort of treason campaign, and there's been some big steps forward with that in the sense that when people began reporting some of our more well-known members of Parliament as for having committed treason in their past, the police, people were going into police stations to report this, and the police, of course, were not taking it seriously. It's moving forward apace. More and more people are reporting this, to the point now that the police have had to make a proper crime report, and is now on the police national database as a crime for investigation. So progress is starting to be made, and the key thing is that the only way that that we can force the current institutions to do the right thing is to have the numbers behind us, and we've got to concentrate on building numbers. And one of the points that I like to make is that needs to be made, in fact, is the type of people that are probably listening to this show are people that are either fully, have been awake for many, many years, or in the process of wakening up. The responsibility is double on us to get the word out to a much broader audience, and to encourage people that have never heard this kind of information before to listen to these kind of radio shows and come to the meetings. It's really important that if we're going to public meetings, that we try to bring people that have never been to that kind of event before, and we've got to sort of stop sitting on the sidelines and become active, just as the Sovereign Independent guys, you guys, Rick, and people like that have become. We've got to encourage everybody to become much more active.
That's what we do, and we also give them the opportunity to actually remain in their homes, because change has to start individually. And I think that that's what we are going through now in the 21st century, is a real shift in consciousness, where people start to look at themselves in the mirror and understand that we are not less than or better than those around us. We are part of the same human family. Well, hopefully, I know that could be a whole different topic, but right here and right now, we are so much alike, and we have so much in common with those that we've been trained to hate. We need to understand that it is about all of us, and to raise our consciousness and to stop giving away our power, to make that spiritual connection ourselves. We are all connected. And when we go within, when we honor that, when we honor each other, and we stand as the common family of man, we can really start to embrace our individual God-given rights, and we can start to live our lives in peace and in harmony and in love, because that would be such a joy, instead of following other people's agendas because we've been trained to do it at our own expense.
Now, just a quick comment to you, Mike, on the treason thing. Myself and Joe Scanlon went in with Albert's folder to Suffolk Constabulary, and they took the folder, all the rest of it went through the motions, but they told us that treason was no longer on the books as a crime. But since then, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah. But since then, I believe it's been reinstated. So it is having a difference.
What they were talking about was a listing on the police national database. Mm-hmm. Of course, it has always been a crime, but it should be noted that we have one less piece of treason legislation today than we had 20 years ago. Because one of probably one of the first things that Tony Blair did when he became Prime Minister in 1998 was that he repealed the 1795 Treason Act. I think it was 1795 Treason Act, and that was the piece of legislation. I think it was the only piece of legislation related to treason on the statute books which specifically listed treason as a capital crime, which was punishable by the death penalty. So we're left with two other treason statutes, one from 1351 and one from 18 something, can't remember. But they, although with from the point of view of common law, treason was always a capital crime. The act that Blair did almost as soon as he became Prime Minister was to remove the one piece of legislation which specified it as in statute as a capital crime. And you've got to say, if you were planning to, if you knew that you were likely to be committing treason in some form and during your time as Prime Minister, it seems like a fairly fundamental thing that you might want to do would be to remove the capital aspect of the crime.
Yeah, well, that shows pre-knowledge of what his whole task was when he was in government.
Yeah, there's a certain hint of premeditation there, isn't there?
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, you have to remove the barriers to your own criminality, I suppose, before you go ahead with it.
Yeah.
So I think Dave's got one final question for you. We've got about 7 minutes left, so I'll let him come in there again.
Just on a more sort of general note, and this is my attitude, and while we've got you online, it'd be nice to get your opinion on it. I always try and point out to people that it's brilliant what's happening with the events that are going on all over Ireland and all over England. There's a lot more conferences and that, and there's a lot more websites going up informing people, and there's these brilliant radio stations, and fair play to Rick and to Karen for doing what they're doing. But I always maintain as well that as well as these things, we also have to look at printed media, and this is what we're all about. The Sovereign Independent, myself and Neil, like what we're doing, putting out as many of these copies of Sovereign Independent as we can, and yourself as well with the UK column, because I think it's very important that we do get more and more printed media out there, because again, if anything happens to the internet, if they manage to commandeer the internet, at least with printed media, it's going to be very difficult to get all these papers and flyers and that out of circulation. And I always try and point out to people, as well as what you're doing as far as the internet and that's concerned, you should try doing things like news sheets, flyers, as much printed media as you can, giving flyers out and stuff with the rhetoric on there, just getting people used to, what's going on in that format as well. I think sometimes people seem to overlook that. Have you got any opinion on that, Mike, as far as printing stuff is concerned?
Yeah, in many ways I agree with you. It has to be said that it becomes difficult to in some respects, it's difficult to present complex issues in print because you end up with long articles that people find difficult to read these days. But I completely agree with you that we need to be considering how we distribute this information if and when the internet is no longer there for us. Mm. I would just say that anybody that wants help to set up a local newspaper, I know that you would help, we'll help. We're just dead keen to encourage anybody that wants to do their own thing, and we'll help them with sourcing articles, and we'll help them with distribution. and will help them with typesetting and all the various other problems that go around that. 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 Absolutely encourage anybody that wants to set up a small or even a large newspaper or a news sheet for their communities, then just get in touch.
Yeah, and likewise. I think Karen would like to make a point or ask a question. Karen.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all again for being part of this, and also your previous guest, John Anthony Hill. It was a very inspiring story. And with his 7/7 ripple effect, it occurs to me that we as well are part of the ripple effect of uniting people all over the world in spirit and in common cause. And I want to thank you again, because I believe now that Pebble has been successfully dropped into the consciousness of the human mind all around the world, that we, the people, can overcome. We, the people, can create a world for all of us. And thank you so much for being part of this.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay.
You there, Mike?
Yes, I'm here, yeah.
Yeah. Have you 3 minutes to go? You got anything you want to add, or anything you want to put out there?
Well, I would just say, the UK column is, we're also finishing off an issue at the moment, and we're expecting to go to press on Wednesday or so. We live by financial contributions. So if anybody wants to do that, please feel free. We're not going to turn it down. But equally importantly, we live by the research and the information that our contributors send to us. So if anybody wants to help us with research, if anybody wants to help the Sovereign Independent with research, please get in touch. One of the other things that we want to start doing on a much broader scale is to publicise local activities. So if you are running a local meeting, or you're running a local event of some kind which is helping to sort of raise awareness, please let us know about it, and we will let other people know about it and make sure that you get support for it.
Yeah, and basically on what you're saying there, Mike, I think it might be beneficial for the listeners to maybe find out how they can actually get copies of the UK column themselves, because people can go onto the Sovereign Independent website, sovereignindependent.com, and they can order copies by post, and we can send it out to them. As well as it being a website that's a daily updated news website, we offer the physical paper by mail order, and you do the same, don't you, Mike? What's the website?
It's ukcolumn.org, and yes, you can call us if you, or you can order a subscription online. Unfortunately, it's via PayPal, but that's for various reasons. Don't particularly like using them, but we're kind of forced to. If you want copies, you can phone the office and we'll send them out. And if you want to help distribute copies, that's no problem as well. If you're willing to take them in batches of 200, I would just encourage you to do that. Just phone the office. We don't charge for people that are distributing the paper. And we would like to see people getting out on the streets with the papers and actually talking to passers-by and handing them out, but not just handing them out and leaving them to it, but actually stopping them and speaking to them for a chat.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Mike Robinson, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you today. You've been very, very inspiring, and we appreciate what you've done for us as well, inspiring the Sovereign Independent. And we'd just like to say to our listeners that if you visit every Monday evening, if you visit Sovereign Independent Radio on the IC radio network, next Monday, this is every Monday, next Monday we'll be speaking to Bob Chapman, and then the Monday after that we'll be speaking to Mike Robinson again. So if you have any questions or you'd like to make any comments, or send in any comments for Mike, then please tune in to us then. That's on the IC Radio Network from 7 till 9 GMT every Monday. So, Mike Robinson, thank you so much for coming on, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks.
Cheers, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later.
Join UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the second Saturday of every month for our live international radio marathon. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why.